I've worked search and rescue for almost 12 years. In that time, I've found people trapped under fallen trees, stranded on cliff ledges, and once a man who spent 3 days walking in circles, less than half a mile from the parking lot. Most missing people are found. That's what makes the job bearable. But there are 2 cases I still think about at least once a week. Because in both cases, people disappeared in ways that shouldn't have been possible. And to this day, I still don't know whether we were looking for people or something that took them. I've learned that people have a very romantic idea of the wilderness. They think it's peaceful, quiet, beautiful, and sometimes it is. But when you've spent enough time searching for missing people in the woods, you start to understand something most people never do. Nature doesn't care if you come home. The majority of our calls are pretty straightforward. Someone twists an ankle. A hiker leaves the trail. A kid wanders farther than they should. Usually we find them within a few hours. There's a reason search and rescue constantly tells people the same thing. If you're lost, stay where you are. And thankfully, most people listen. But every once in a while, you get a case that doesn't make sense. The kind that follows you home. The kind that wakes you up at 3 in the morning, years later. The first happened about 7 years ago. It was late summer, right in the middle of berry season. A family had driven up from out of state to spend the weekend camping. According to the report, the parents had taken their 2 children, an 8-year-old boy and his 6-year-old sister, into a clearing about a mile from their campsite to pick berries. The father said he turned around to refill a water bottle. The mother was organizing containers in their backpack. Neither of them looked away for more than 30 seconds. When they looked back, both kids were gone. By the time our team arrived, the parents were hysterical. The father kept repeating the same sentence over and over. I only looked away for a second. I've heard that sentence more times than I can count. People never realize how quickly things can go wrong in the woods. We began our search immediately. About 45 minutes later, one of our volunteers found the little girl sitting beside a fallen log nearly half a mile away. She wasn't crying, she wasn't hurt. She was just sitting there quietly, eating berries. I remember that detail because it struck all of us as strange. Kids don't usually react that calmly after getting lost. I crouched down beside her and asked where her brother was. She looked at me for a moment and said something I'll never forget. "The bear man took him." At first, I assumed she meant an actual bear. Kids describe things strangely, especially when they're scared. I asked if she'd seen a bear. She shook her head. "No, the bear man. What does he look like?" She pointed toward the trees. "Big. How big?" She stood up and stretched her arm as high as she could. "Really, really big." One of the deputies asked if he was wearing a costume. She thought about it for a few seconds before shaking her head again. He was covered in hair, like a bear, but he had a weird face. Kids can be unreliable witnesses, especially after traumatic events, so we didn't put much stock into it initially. Then she told us something else. "He gave me berries." That immediately changed the tone of the conversation. "What do you mean?" "He told me to stay quiet while he played with my brother." Even now, writing those words down makes me uncomfortable. The implication was obvious. We shifted from a missing child search to a potential abduction. State police became involved almost immediately. Dogs were brought in. Additional teams arrived. For nearly 3 weeks, we searched every square mile of that mountain. Nothing. No footprints, no clothing, no signs of a struggle, no evidence that another person had ever been there. The dogs couldn't maintain a scent trail for more than a few hundred yards before it simply stopped. It's like the boy vanished. The little girl never changed her story. Over multiple interviews, months apart, she described the exact same thing every single time. A tall man, covered in hair, a strange face she couldn't describe, and her brother riding calmly on his shoulders as they disappeared into the trees. People can believe whatever they want. Maybe she saw a man in hunting gear, maybe trauma distorted her memory, or maybe she invented the whole thing to cope with losing her brother. But here's the part that still bothers me. Children aren't usually calm around strangers, especially not strangers that look unusual. Yet according to her, her brother wasn't scared at all. He was smiling. The second case happened about 4 years later. It was one of the strangest calls I've ever responded to. A woman in her early 20s had gone hiking with her mother and grandfather. The trail wasn't difficult. I'd hiked it myself several times. About 2 miles in, they stopped at an overlook. According to both family members, the woman climbed a large pine tree to get a better view above the canopy. Apparently, she'd done things like that her entire life. The grandfather even joked that she'd probably been a squirrel in another life. They watched her climb. They watched her reach a branch roughly 20 feet off the ground. Then, they lost sight of her among the branches. At first, they didn't think anything of it. Her mother called up to ask if the view was worth it. No response. They laughed and assumed she was ignoring them. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Eventually, the grandfather climbed halfway up the tree himself. He couldn't find her. He called her name. Nothing. According to both of them, she never came down. I know how insane that sounds. Trust me. I've replayed that statement in my head hundreds of times. When we arrived, both family members were visibly shaken. The mother kept saying the same thing. We would have seen her. And honestly, I believed her. The tree stood alone in a relatively open area. If someone climbed down, there was nowhere else for them to go without being seen, unless they jumped. But there were no injuries, no blood, no disturbed ground beneath the tree. Nothing. We searched the surrounding area for 6 days. Helicopters, thermal imaging, K9 units, nothing. At one point, I climbed that tree myself. I wanted to see if there was another explanation. Maybe another branch extended farther than we'd realized. Maybe she'd fallen into dense brush. Maybe there was something we'd missed. About 20 feet up, I found myself standing where she had supposedly been last seen. The view stretched for miles. And that's when I noticed something. It was quiet. Unnaturally quiet. No birds, no wind, nothing. I remember looking out over the trees and getting this overwhelming feeling that I wasn't alone. You can call it instinct. You can call it imagination. But every person who spends enough time in the wilderness develops a sense for when something feels wrong. That place felt wrong. Then I noticed something carved into the bark just above my head. 3 words, "Don't look down." I almost laughed. Probably some teenager trying to scare people. Still, I looked down anyway, and for a moment, I could have sworn I saw someone standing among the trees below me. They were impossibly tall, standing perfectly still, watching. I blinked, and they were gone. I climbed down immediately. I've never told anyone on my team about that, partly because I don't know what I saw. Exhaustion does strange things to your mind, especially after spending 6 days searching for someone who seemingly disappeared into thin air. The woman was never found. No body, no clothing, nothing. Officially, both cases remain unsolved. People ask me all the time if I believe in things we can't explain. I usually tell them no, because if I start believing there's something in those woods taking people, I don't know if I'd ever feel comfortable going back, but I will say this. After all these years, I've noticed one pattern. Every missing persons case I've worked that didn't make sense had one thing in common. The woods were always quiet. No birds, no insects, no life, just silence. And whenever new volunteers join our search and rescue team, I always tell them the same thing before their first search. If the forest suddenly goes silent, I usually stop there, because I never know how to finish that sentence. The truth is, I still haven't figured out what comes next. If you enjoyed tonight's story, subscribe to the Dark Chronicles for more true horror stories every week. Until next time, see you in the dark.